Hello, welcome to Pensions in 10 with me, David Brooks, and my colleague, Sadhbh Lynch. This week, we take a look at the People's Pensions Transfers Outcomes Index. Breathe. And then we also take a look at the pensions dashboard and what will be shown in respect of state benefits. Then finally, we have an update on the PPF administration levy. Okay, Sadhbh, so for our first story, you've been looking at the People's Pensions, let me just get this right, the Pensions Transfer Outcomes Index. What does it say?
Yes, so this looked at basically people transferring their pension from one provider to another, like through consolidation. I know we spoke about last month, but many different options. So over the past 18 months, they have calculated that 500 million has been lost due to pension transfers. So people transferring, for example, from a scheme which has like lower fees or lower, like just any sort of lower fees, transferring to a different pension provider. All of those accumulated losses have added up to about 500 million just in these 18 months. So quite significant. So I think they're just trying to track that. So since 2023, they said there's been over a 40% rise in this transfer risk. And since 2020, over 120% rise. So quite significant rises that they're seeing at the moment in terms of this transfer risk, which is difficult because I know we spoke about it before, but especially with people moving pension providers and not being able to compare the impact of fees on their pension scheme, it's quite hard to figure out what the pros and cons would be from consolidating versus not. So I think there should really be a push towards standardized information to make sure that people can decide whether this is a good or a bad idea for them and to avoid or at least reduce that transfer risk that we're seeing at the moment. Hopefully with the pension dashboards that are launching soon, obviously this might increase transfer volumes. So that might worsen the overall problem within this country. But I think if we could standardize some information before then, hopefully it won't increase by as much as we think.
Yeah, no, it's a big issue. And I think the dashboard might go one of two ways, I suppose. If people struggle to keep up to date with the different pension pots. And so that's one of the drivers that we've seen for consolidation or for people transferring. So hopefully, though, if people see everything in one place, that drive to do that might go away. So obviously, there's other drivers to transfers. The scheme they're going to might have better options for drawdown or just a better app or different other services that be outside charges. So it's more than just the charges, but obviously that's a big element. If you're just going from a very good 21st century workplace pension provider to another 21st century workplace pension provider, they're likely to be similar, in many ways to their services. So it will come down to those charges as People Pensions points out.
Okay, Dave, so do you want to bring us through what won't be shown about state pensions on the dashboards?
Yes. So a week or so ago, I've only just spotted it, so hence I'm bringing it to your attention. The Pension Dashboard Programme did a blog or a piece about how the state pension is going to be shown on the dashboard. And I suppose, the headline is that the state pension is going to be shown on the dashboard. That is good news. I don't want to be too kind of sniffy about it. So that is good because that's going to be a big part of lots of people's retirement. It's the bedrock really for many people's retirements. So that is going to be shown. But however, the blog goes through a number of questions, sort of Q&A style things. Is this going to be shown on the dashboard in respect of state pensions? And the answer in most cases is no. So there's lots of information around state pension. I've written just 4 of them down in front of me here. I couldn't remember them. So there's sort of gaps in national insurance. So if you've got a national insurance gap, you won't get the full state pension. Will that be shown on the dashboard? No. The impact of deferral of your state pension, so that gets increased if you defer past state pension age. Is that shown on the dashboard? No. The impact of any voluntary contributions, would that, the improvement of that to your state pension, would that be shown on the dashboard? No. And finally, details about pension credit, will that be shown on the dashboard? And no. Now, I can understand it on one hand because it's really complicated, and as an employer for a business that looks after sort of pension schemes on a commercial basis, we're not going to show a great deal of information either. If people want to defer their retirement, if people want to do different things, people want to increase contributions, we're not showing that either. So I suppose you can argue, well, it's going to be very difficult for the state pension to do that as well. It's a shame because it's obviously DWP and the government are all building this dashboard, are all part of the process. So I think it would have been helpful if they could have included some of these extra bits, but maybe they'll come later. I think the important thing, as long as these things are signposted on the dashboard that people want to find out more, they can find out more easily. I think the pension credit one would be interesting. I think that it'd be useful to have a flag perhaps on there, because pension credit is historically underclaimed, and still, despite the campaigns we had recently around the winter fuel allowance. So I think it'd be good to try to do something where people can help themselves without even spending more money, other than filling in some forms and speaking to people on the phone in the call centre or something. So I think that would have been good, but maybe it's something that can be built in the future. People who talk about the dashboards a lot talk about not trying to deliver something that's perfect from day one, something that's good, and over years we can add to it and make the dashboard something that people will come back to as it gets improved over time, in the next 10, 20, 30, whatever, 100 years. However, with dashboard in mind, I did note a survey that I saw over the weekend. Schroders Personal Wealth did a survey of people's awareness of pensions, which was depressingly low. So people weren't aware of the forthcoming rise in national sort of normal minimum pension age. Also, they weren't aware of the rise in state pension age, and also not being aware of the inclusion of pension benefits for inheritance tax, which is coming through in a couple of years as well. And I think, and I would hope, that the dashboard becomes something that we can use for that as well. So kind of got two things. You've got the state pension. It's complicated for many people. You might have protected amounts from previous state pension systems and all these sorts of things. It's quite complicated from an individual basis. And I think the more information that the dashboard can do, it becomes sort of a one-stop shop for people to find out about state benefits, but also other legislative changes that are coming through. We've heard about the WASPI women, people who are affected by the rise in state pension age, announced in 1995, effective through the 2000s, and they're very upset, not thinking they had been told about this. The dashboard, perhaps we can use that as a system. If people go to it regularly and say, don't forget you'll be affected by this, the minimum pension age rising, or if you're planning to leave benefits to your children, don't forget you could be affected by inheritance tax change. So if you're planning this, be aware of it. And perhaps the dashboard, I'm not trying to turn it into some gigantic, solution for everything, but it's going to be a place where people are going to see all their pensions. And if we can have other information that could be pertinent to their planning, I think that would be great. So perhaps that's something that the dashboard program will think about in the future. All right, Si, for our final story, you're going to look at proposals in the Pension Schemes Bill to abolish the PPF admin levy.
Yes, so the levy was suspended for 2 years around COVID, so it returned in April 2025, and it potentially cost DB schemes across the UK £15 million a year, so quite a significant cost for the DB pensions sector. And two Lib Dem MPs are actually trying to shift away this cost, so reducing costs and then also just the bureaucracy that goes on with trying to calculate what this PPF bill or this PPF levy should be. So this will shift admin costs to PPF's general funds, and then also let the Fraud Compensation Fund cover its own expenses via its own levy. So this is quite good as it's across parity. So the Lib Dems are trying to lead this, but then it's also supported by some of the Labour MPs as well. So it's hopefully good if we can move away from these unnecessary costs. Obviously, that's going to improve outcomes for savers. So I guess we'll just see where this goes when we go to the House of Commons. Thanks everyone for listening and watching. Please make sure to tune in again next week with Dave.